Welcome back to Up and Adam. I'm Jack Tomzak. That is Andrew Lee. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Up and Adam Show and like the page on Facebook for Twin Cities News Talk. Do not follow Andrew Lee at Andrew Lee TCNT on Twitter. It's a waste of your time. On Monday, former Congressman Ron Paul is going to be in town for CFACT. The event is at the Ted Mann Concert Hall. Doors open at 6. The event begins at 7. Tickets are available at cfactcampus.org. I will also tweet that out. Joining us now, former Congressman Ron Paul.
Good morning.
Good morning, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Now, Congressman, you are in town to speak at a college campus. You'll be speaking to young people. One of the things I've tried to figure out on this show and the 20 years in politics before this is how do we appeal to young people? You've managed to do it. How?
Yeah, and a lot of people ask me exactly how, and I'm not quite sure. But the response I get when I quiz some of the young people and the students when they come to visit is that they believe I'm telling them the truth, that we have a lot of problems, and they recognize this, but they are satisfied that I'm giving answers that may well be good answers, that there does not need to be a thought that we can't change from this, that you can explain why the economy gets into trouble and why we fight senseless wars and why the government gets too big. And they listen to what I think we should be doing, and it's in the tradition of what has made America great. And I think we've left that tradition, but we need to restore that and build on it and emphasize the importance of individual liberty rather than collective groups and special interests fighting with each other to get control and power over the government.
What do you find resonates best, the liberty and freedom angle or the you're going to have to pay for all of this at some point angle?
Well, you would think that the paying for it would be, the top issue. It's very high, but it isn't. I think young people especially are attracted to a principled answer of what individual liberty means, that it's their life, they can do with it what they want, but I do emphasize that, yes, it's your life, but you have responsibility. If you mess up your life, you just can't go to the government and ask them to solve it. So when I take these positions on social matters, that they can make very, very important decisions on how to deal with risk and personal behavior, they like that, but they also accept the fact that they have to be responsible for this. And I know the numbers of young people that come out are very, very enthusiastic, but I also know what percentage of individuals that represents. So if you have a campus of 10,000 and 1,000 comes out, you still are only talking to 10%. But I do talk a whole lot about the importance of leadership. It's leadership in a country that makes the difference. The people who get on talk shows and run talk shows and write newspapers and write articles and teach, these people are less than 10% of a country, but they lead the way and they get people to be conditioned. Our country's been conditioned for the last 100 years almost to go toward entitlement and dependency and spending and debt and war to promote America's greatness. And they have accepted these things. But right now, it's coming to an end. The foreign policy has failed. The economic policies have failed. And they know there has to be an alternative, and it can be found in the freedom that we once enjoyed, but we're losing. We used to always rate the top in the world on economic benefits as well as freedom. And now we don't. We've slipped. And it's hard to believe that, some of these very small countries that we don't respect very much rate higher than we do now when it comes to income and personal liberty.
And you've always been sort of the standard bearer of what people call the libertarian wing of the Republican Party. Your last couple presidential runs have really kind of sparked a new movement within the Republican Party, the liberty movement, the libertarian movement. But it's a group of people that have been constantly frustrated by what they call the Republican establishment. Do you see a future for the liberty movement, the libertarian wing of the Republican Party within the Republican Party to really affect some real change inside the party, or do you see an inevitability of eventually they're going to have to leave the Republican Party if they really want to advance what they consider their libertarian or liberty ideals?
I don't think about that much, and I don't think that's the important issue. The important issue is what the attitude is of the people in the country. Do they accept this argument that liberty is the way to go? If we win this argument, which is an intellectual argument, we will influence Republicans and Democrats and independents, because all of a sudden they'll say, welfareism doesn't work. It bankrupts the country and it helps the very wealthy and not the poor. That has to be endorsed by everybody. Today, even though the Republicans and Democrats fight tooth and nail over power, they don't fight over significant changes in foreign policy. There's no real contingency in Washington to combat Republican and Democrats on our overseas adventurism or the Federal Reserve or the welfare state or debt. There's talk a little bit, but if somebody's interested in these ideas, they can use the Republican Party. They can do it in the Democratic Party, because there are some progressive Democrats that I work with that like the idea of civil liberties, and they would like to see a lot less militarism. And so everybody has a chance to work any place they want, whether it's Republicans, independents, teaching, writing, whatever. It's just to spread this message and influence others and get other people to understand that the status quo is coming to an end. I quite frankly think the economy is in shambles and has not really improved since 2008. And right now, it is even being recognized by our government statistics that things are getting bad again. So I think that the opportunity is just fantastic for us to present an alternative to a system that is facing total failure.
We're talking with former Congressman Ron Paul, who's going to be in town on Monday for a Collegians for a Constructive Tomorrow, or CFACT, event at the University of Minnesota at the Ted Mann Concert Hall. Doors open at 6. Lecture starts at 7. Go to cfactcampus.org. Students and kids are free. Dr. John Spry?
So I wanted to know, if you're going to be speaking on this college campus, what would you tell young people are the strengths and weaknesses of free markets?
Well, I talk a whole lot about that because, if you look at history, the countries that have had the most prosperity and the fairest distribution, largest middle class, it's always related to the maximum amount of freedom. But freedom in the market means property rights. People have to own property. If property is collectively owned or collectively regulated, the special interests get to control that. We still have pseudo-private property, but we don't. We're overtaxed and overregulated, and we have to ask the government to do everything. So if you want prosperity for the maximum number of people, and you want to curtail the power and the strength of government to serve the interests of the very wealthy, as our monetary system does, you have to look at free markets, and which means that markets have to be voluntary. You can't force or prohibit people from doing things in the market, just as most people do accept the idea. We don't accept that in spiritual things. We don't force or prohibit, and social things and social behavior. We should permit voluntary associations, but we have to allow totally voluntary associations as long as there's no theft, fraud, or injury. And under those circumstances, people make their own choices. If they want prosperity, that's what they would have to accept.
Congressman, how do we get better at selling that message to voters?
That's the greatest challenge we have, and I frequently criticize all of us, including myself. Why don't we do better? It's such a wonderful
It's an easy product.
Idea. We do our very, very best, but we haven't really competed with this idea that you can get something for free.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about deficits.
Yep.
We've been taught for 100 years that deficits don't matter. And it can go on forever. I mean, just listen to the Keynesians, the Paul Krugmans of the world. They believe that you don't have to worry about debt. But right now, the world is facing with debt, and that's why the economy continues to be in recession.
Yeah,
Congressman,
well, I think it's been shown that the majority of the electorate wants a government that's going to do things for them and not do things. And the message of freedom, unfortunately, is you're going to be free to do things on your own. Mm-hmm. You're going to be free to make your own choices. We're not going to hold your hand through life. And while your opponents are out there saying, no, we're going to protect you, we're going to do things for you, there's people out there that are out to get you, and you need us. Yeah. And it's tough to win an election when those are the competing ideals.
And that is the challenge, is that if people want the security, economic security, and they want to be safe and taken care of, versus assuming responsibility for oneself. People get frightened. They're frightened by governments. You know, people have been severely frightened since 9/11. So they say, well, I still hear it. Well, you got to give up some of your freedoms to be safe. And of course, we were warned about that. Yes, we want to be safe. But you can't have a policeman in your house to make you safe. You've got to have other ways of making yourself safe, and it's available. People aren't necessarily less safe because they have less policemen marching around. And right now, the challenge is, are the policemen really on our side at all times?
Some Democrat who's listening just had the thought, maybe we could put a policeman in every house.
Yeah, that's the danger of making statements like that. Say, hey, that's a good idea.
Congressman Ron Paul, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it. We'll see you on Monday.
Very good, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you. On Monday at the Ted Mann Concert Hall at the University of Minnesota. Doors open at 6. Lecture starts at 7. Tickets are available at cfactcampus.org. Students and kids are free.
And you'll have a chance to win tickets later this show.
Are you smarter than a lump? In an hour. We'll see how smart the lump is. If we had more time, I could talk to Ron Paul forever. I don't, with Mark Dayton, with the quote-unquote free kindergarten and the quote-unquote free pre-K, I don't know how to effectively combat that with the voter, because they're thinking, oh, free stuff is good.
Yeah, it's free. I don't want to have to pay for
I'm not
pre-K.
paying for that.
This is going to be great.
And odds are they're not. It's somebody else whose kids are probably well gone who's paying for that. And I don't know how you convince somebody that that's the wrong direction. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, thank you, John Spry. Always appreciate your time. We'll talk with Ben Johnson with the City Pages.
Up and at 'em now. Glenn Beck next at 9.
On Twin Cities News Talk, AM